Hello, everyone. There we go. It wouldn't be a stream if we didn't have audio problems. So hello, everyone. Welcome to Romance, part of Nerdburger Con here on Goldhart Group, Goldhart Gaming, whatever your Twitch. I am your moderator today, Gloss and Gadgets, also known as Leonie, and I have a ton of stuff to get through. So we're going to just do that, and then we're going to go introduce our panelists and kind of talk about more what we're doing. So, of course, romance, creating romantic arcs in TTRPGs. Basically, we're here to bring you on a smoochable journey. We're going to talk about systems. We're going to talk about consent. We're going to talk about our favorite shipping dynamics, just as a laugh. We're also going to enjoy the delights of our experience in romantic arcs and bring them to you so that you too can enjoy romance in TTRPGs, because at the end of the day, after you have the treasure and after you've slain the villain, what else is there? Well, the thing that is there is romance. So yes, we are part of Nerdburger Con. If you don't know what Nerdburger Con is, it's part of Nerdburger Games, who have made the wonderful Capers TTRPG book, which I had the pleasure of playing several months ago. And Nerdburger Con is basically like any other convention. You know, there is a nice virtual, I don't want to call it a showroom. It's not a store. It's where you marketplace. There's some nice vendors. There we go. The word came to me as I just kept talking. There's a nice virtual vendor store. There is a Discord which you can join, which is the kind of center of all the events. There are games to be joined. There are streams. There are other panels, and of course, Nerdburger Con are also fundraising. They are fundraising for the Trevor Project, where 70% of the funds will go. Also, 30% of them will go towards one of their designers that is having life-changing surgery soon. I saw a notification about an hour ago saying that they have raised almost $500 of their $3,000 goal. So we're almost there. If you feel like donating, a link will be going around in the chat. But also, I do believe our wonderful Michael Kritz just dropped it in the chat for you if you are curious. And yes, we're having a giveaway. So once everyone gets situated and we start the discussion, I will open up the giveaway to which you can enter. You'll have to either be watching for a couple of hours or you can follow or host to get enough ticket points to enter the giveaway. But the giveaway is for a Elderwood Academy cherrywood dice box. So you just know it smells really good since it's cherrywood. I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm just the wood sniffer, but I really like the smell of wood. Good wood, you know, mahogany. You know, you get a nice piece of mahogany furniture in an antique, so it just has a good smell. And different woods have different smells, okay? But yes, that's yours to win. Please note that by entering this giveaway that you do give your consent to share your home address or PO box with us and with Nerdburger themselves, who will be shipping out that prize. So be wary of that, because you can't get a nice dice box if we don't know where you live. Anything else I need to tell you? I'm sure there is. Giveaway, Discord, fundraiser. There's one more thing, and I'm having a mind blank. So, since I'm having a mind blank, we'll just get right into it. Hello, panelists.
Hi.
Hi. So let's quickly go around the table, shall we say? And I just remembered the thing that I was going to say. Please note, we are going to talk very grown-up things here. If you're of a very demure and sensitive type and blush at the mere mention and thought of holding hands or seeing ankles, perhaps this is not the medium for you. Come back later scandalous. When there is I know, scandalous.
Scandalous. I'll see myself out.
We are coming with a content warning. We are sex positive here. We are LGBTQIA+ here. And we're going to be covering all topics, all forms of love, from platonic to ace to polycules, the lot of it. And if you're a little bit sensitive, you can tune out. We'll be giving extra content warnings as we go along. But maybe you should come back later and watch the VOD so you can skip the parts that you're not interested in. And that's it, yes. So yes, hello panelists. I remembered the thing that I was going to say. Let's go around the table quickly. Please introduce yourselves. Tell us about what you do, what you're up to, and last but not least, please tell me your favorite shipping dynamic. So, because I'm just going to give you a moment to think, I'm going to go first. So, I'm Leonie, also known as Gloss and Gadgets. I am the producer of here, Goldhart Group. I am responsible for the overlays and the bot and the stream deck and all this other thing. And that's what I do. As for my favorite shipping dynamic, I am a big fan of, and I saved a meme on my phone so I prepared for this question. And now I realize I didn't have it up. But my favorite shipping dynamic is both, how to describe it? Bastard magnet and obvious bastard with a crush. That's a good shipping dynamic that I'm quite into. But also just the generic stoic and crushing is another one of my favorites. And I think my panelists has had enough time to get an answer. So Adelaide, hi.
Hi, I am Adelaide Garner. You can find me at OAdelaide on Twitter and everywhere else. I am a tabletop designer and content creator. I am part of a team called Action Fiction. We just released our first game, Monsters of Merca, and our first expansion is going to be on Kickstarter on September 9th. It's very funny. Leonie is doing a lot of work for us on that, which is really nice. Logo updates, woohoo! Secrets, special stuff coming up. So check that out if you like really funny games. And as far as my favorite trope, I really love the stuck together or the fake relationships where like, oh, well, we have to get married or we're going to get arrested or something. I don't know. And then they fall in love and then they're already married and it's great. Love it. Also, you know, when you have when they're kind of like frenemies and like one of them has like the dagger and they tip it under their chin and look, oh, I'm hot already. Just move to the next person. It's so good.
You didn't hear. I'll just let you have this.
So good.
I already came with my own. I'm already a bit warm. Sin, hi.
Hi. My name is Sinziak. I use he, him pronouns. As far as what I do, well, that's weird because I actually have an answer to that question now. So today, as of like I think 2 or 3 hours ago, Mnemonic has launched, and I helped with doing the writing for some of that. So like that's out, like the Kickstarter's out today. I'm kind of excited about it. So yeah, that's a whole thing now.
Congratulations.
So we're gonna blame Leonie for that, but we'll talk about that later in a good way. We're gonna
Okay,
talk about
we'll talk about
but
that.
Also, my favorite shipping dynamic. So there are a couple of things. I think one of them is the only way I know how to describe it is Garnet. You know, like those things where you have that odd couple dynamic, one person who is just like a chaotic, hot-headed mess versus the other person who's just like really calm and organized, very level-headed, and they just balance each other out. It's kind of like, why are you like this? Why do I like you? But I do. Kind of thing. I enjoy that a lot.
That's a good one.
Oh my God,
okay. Right. Michael, hi. Muted.
Hello, yeah. So I was figuring that out. Yeah, so Michael Sinclair II. I go by Michael Crits everywhere. I am a professional Dungeon and Dragons player now, so that's what I do. And I'm a computer science student, so I got a lot of things going. on a podcast with Adelaide, and then I'm going to be on the Looking for More network on some future episodes or season. Anyway, and then my favorite relationship dynamic is, I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but I like the sweet and cathartic ones where someone is trying to work through something that they had previously felt was that was difficult, or something that wasn't healthy before, and so they get to work on that with someone. I really love that. And then there's also the other part where I like just some really spicy stuff, where one of them is bad, like the good bad, and teaching someone else how to get through that, all that good stuff. So that's
the dangerous relationships. Ooh.
yeah, a little danger, just a little. And those are my favorites. Yeah.
Love it. So I'm just looking over chat. Yes, Rivals to Lovers is very popular. I can see there. And of course, last but certainly not least, Kai. Hi.
So my name is Kai Anthony. I am currently the only stream I'm actually doing right now is Lost Horizon Semblance, which we streamed last night on Goldhart Gaming. That was so fun. And you can catch it every other Friday for the next 4 Fridays. So please come join us. The other thing I do, I'm an independent tabletop RPG designer, and I am about to launch a Patreon that falls pretty much in line with what we're talking about today.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not launched yet, so I didn't want to plug it too hard, but I have upcoming comics and writing in the
You had
the
my
vein of
curiosity.
romance.
Now you have my attention.
Yeah, it's going to be quite wonderful, I think. As for me, my favorite shipping dynamic, I have a lot, so I'm going to try to like hammer it down to a couple instead. The big two, I'll do it too. The big two that come to mind are like, I'm a big softie for Beauty and the Beast type of thing, where you have like the sort of gruff, big strunk, and then the soft one that just they soften and harden each other at the same time. I really love that. And the other shipping dynamic that I absolutely love. I'm talking too fast. I'm seeing chat now. Oh no. The other one that I absolutely love are like the two people who are willing to do anything for each other. They're best friends, they're lovers, they're trying to make it work. And then they amicably decide, no, this is actually not, we're not in love. I actually really love those stories. Where at the end, they're just like, we're actually not getting married because we realized we don't fit that. Something like that. And they go their separate ways, and it's super just amicable.
You know what? I'm going to have to get a list from you later because I don't know any stories that do that, but I would love to read some about that.
One that comes to mind is Mamma Mia, the musical.
You know, I watched Mamma Mia 2 the other day, so I just need to go watch the first. All right, so let's open this panel up. We're going to start talking about romance, and I want to ask you what romance means to you, because romance is a very generic thing, and something that I see a lot, especially when you trail Reddit or look on Twitter, is a lot of people seem to assume in TTRPGs that romance equals sex, especially in the role-playing dynamic, and I see lots of handshaking. Yes, I know, that's why we're having this panel. So, panelists, and you know, chat, feel free to join in as well. What does romance mean to you? And this is just going to be open floor, so whoever wants it can take it.
you know, it's funny because you're just like, for most people, when it comes to romance, the first thing that they think about is sex. But for me, when I think about what romance looks like in these games, it's literally everything else. It's things like, I ran into an NPC who's at a shop, who's picking up flowers on the way home, or picking up someone's favorite food, or like two people like walking out in the woods at sunset or something like that. It's all of this. I guess for me, romance is more kind of like interpersonal intimacy type of stuff rather than like physical acts, I guess is the way that I want to say that.
It's hard to describe a feeling, because you can go to a shopkeeper and have a pleasant interaction that is not romantic, and you can go to a different shopkeeper and have an exactly same pleasant interaction, but there's a little jump. There's something. And I think it's like that mystery and that like almost like, ooh, I feel kind of like almost sick, but I'm not sick kind of feeling where you don't really know what to expect, but in a really good anticipated way. I don't know. It's that old trope of like your heart's fluttering and you don't know how to describe it. But that's the romance for me.
Yeah, I think for me, and at least for TTRPGs and a little bit in life, like I think as romance in a TTRPG is a consensual mini game of just like being able to kind of do a little back and forth and finding out where each other is and having fun while doing it. It's an interesting like dynamic of like this person likes this or their personality is this, and so like how do I navigate through that? And I think that's how I like to think about romance and TTRPGs, and even a little bit in life of just like it's a consensual game that both people want to invest time and get something great out of. So.
Romance for me is, I think there are two sides to it. Um, for me, it's a connection we make with another person that allows us to unlock certain facets of ourselves that we may or may not know are there. And the other facet is the idea that we cannot grow in certain ways. We can only grow in the directions that we're going to grow in. And so the idea of finding a romance is to also find this way that people can grow in which you can't.
That's really beautiful. So I'm just like, oh, this is so heartwarming and lovely. No, intimacy. Yeah, you all bring up the point. Romance is about intimacy, whether that intimacy is sexual or physical or emotional or spiritual, as Kai aptly brought out. So the next question that I'm going to ask you is, how do you approach this intimacy or romance in your games?
By literally saying it. Summer does what is her name on Twitter? Everybody knows Summer. That's fine. I don't remember her name. I want to say Summer does a great job, but that doesn't make any sense. Is that it? I don't know. She had a great thread about like just say it. Like tell people out of character. Like I think like my character has maybe a thing for your character. Like, is that okay? Is that cool? You know, are you feeling the same? Like, are we getting the same vibes? Like, it's totally fine to not make it be a grand surprise. Like, will you marry me? And the person never really knows in character, out of character, like how that character is feeling. So, like, it's not going to spoil the moment. It's not going to ruin the mood. Just say it.
Yeah. I agree with Adelaide, and just to kind of go off of that, yeah, say it. Like it shouldn't be a surprise. Like even in life, like relationship surprises usually aren't welcome. So like at least talk about it with the other player or with your DM, and also just like constant check-ins, and then also having like little goals and like little things that you both want to kind of see through each other's characters. I think that's the way I'd like to approach it, and the best way of like the best results or best like arcs and stuff have come from that is constant check-ins and what Adelaide said, literally saying it, checking in.
So I think the most interesting approach to this I've seen was at like just kind of at the start. This was before I even knew what like safety tools were, what consent checklists were, or anything like that. Had a game where the question that was asked was, "Hey, as we're starting this game, do any of you have amorous characters?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Do you have characters that have any inclination or like want to be romantically involved with anyone?" So that it prevented people from asking you or approaching you in that way if that was something you clearly stated at the beginning you didn't want. So it was one of those before the romance even shows up, just going, that character just said they are not doing amorous things. I'm not going to ask them. which was pretty cool. And then I guess after that, being like everyone else has said, if you have characters who are willing to have relationships with other people, like actually talk to them and go like, hey, is this cool? Is this something that you want? And also, please tell me if I'm being creepy about it, because I do not want to do that.
Right. It should be like a little checklist, like on the, the Money Cook, little checklist. Just be like, hey, is your character open to relationships? Check yes or no, like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal
Oh my
to say
goodness,
yes.
this
It's not a big deal
reminds
to
me
say
of like a
no.
third grade letter. Just slide a note
Right?
across the
Do you
table.
like me? Are you open to liking
Yes.
me?
Yeah, more of those in D&D, please. More
Yes, no,
You gotta
maybe.
fold it in the old-fashioned fancy way that the kids don't do nowadays, though.
Oh, what, in the love knots?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like-
and the little tab
Yeah.
things. Oh, those are the
You
days.
like me, YN?
I'm trying to imagine this coming from an orc at this particular moment in time.
Yes,
That's
I love it.
cute.
The orc swings his axe, landing right next to you. Suddenly a note falls on your chest. You open it up. It says, "Do you like me, YN?"
Cute.
Amazing.
All right, cool. But okay, so you've covered quite a bit about players, like players just being like yes, no. What about NPCs? What about as DMs? What if just say for some reason you haven't done the do you like me, yes or no, of romance, and a player, just suddenly hits on an NPC. Like, how do you handle that?
I guess I'll speak into that because that's happened quite in many of my games. I don't know what characters I'm making, but apparently.
Clearly ones that are making people thirsty.
Yeah. I try and reciprocate in the moment, just like a little here or there, nothing too serious at the moment. If they're like, hey, et cetera, like, we're here at this inn, why don't you meet me up? I kind of just like do a polite like push away, I'm still interested, etc. And then, the in between sessions or during a break, I'm like, hey, where are you at with this? And then I also check in with the whole group to see if like, is the whole group okay if this person has a romance arc as well, or some sort of like, flirting arc, because some people are really put off and some people kind of cringe or whatever to that, or don't have the either emotional maturity, or they just don't want to see that. So I think during the moment when the first attraction to an NPC happens, what I do is just do a little like reciprocation here or there, what I think is the appropriate levels, and then I go into a follow-up after, during a break or after the session.
I'm actually getting into this situation now. My game is postponed, but I'm starting to DM, and for some reason, it almost feels different for my players to flirt with my characters as the DM versus a player to flirt with me as a player. And I don't know why there's like that strange boundary to me. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do about it, because I love romance in games, and I feel like almost disappointed if my character doesn't have like some romance, or there's not a PC and PC romance in the game. So I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's like me as like a femme person, like, and tabletop spaces being very like masculine dominated, unfortunately. So it's very strange. Like, I feel like I have to warn them, like, don't let it bleed, because like I'm kind of the boss as the game master. I don't know if there's a weird like power dynamic in my brain now that I think about it. That's really interesting.
Could you please explain a little bit more how it's different?
I think maybe it's the power dynamic. I think between like a player and the game master, which I don't really think there should be necessarily a power dynamic, but because I'm raised in D&D and all its problematic ways, so maybe it's just ingrained in me kind of thing. That's really interesting. I don't know. I've never thought of that before. I don't know. I'll have to give like a post panel update whenever I start running games again and let it.
So I have a little bit of a thing to jump off of that with. I note that a lot of the romance games I play are actually, Sam, shush, are actually GM-less, kind of for the reason you're describing. Buddy, okay, all right, you want to come close? Okay, you want it to be under my seat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of the games that are romance that I play are GMless for this reason, because even though maybe there shouldn't be a power dynamic between or a change in the power dynamic between a DM and a player, but it's certainly not written that way, and it's hard for people to internalize and come up with new ways for their own agency, especially in a game with a DM. So when we look at GMless games, what we're looking at is a lot more agency for individual players to decide their compromise in whatever relationships they take on. This includes games like Polaris, where you might be playing multiple characters in somebody's life, or Monster Hearts, in which you do have a facilitator who plays NPCs. However, NPCs do not have the power to make rolls. They have the power to make hard moves, but not necessarily like react. So when I run for romance in general, I remove myself, if I'm the GM, from the ability to make determinations on that relationship or do anything with the plot that might threaten it without their explicit consent. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things.
And we're going to go into consent in much, much more detail. I can see in the chat we have Aliorax obviously expressing a very common situation that we've probably all been in with a player that just won't take no for an answer. So we're going to go into consent a little bit later on in the panel. So we'll get to that. Don't worry. And then Ashley Grace has an interesting point as well, that it's more comfortable for Ashley to have their characters flirt with an NPC than with another PC, because the DM plays so many characters. It's easier to separate the person from the character. But all my friends are all good about that sort of thing anyway. So yeah, I can kind of get that too. I can understand that. Like, I actually prefer to choose PC romances personally, just because the people that I'm playing with are my trusted friends. And yeah, it's that power dynamic. Oh, the DM's up there, and the DM's got so many things to juggle. Like, they don't need me going.
It feels like I'm imposing.
Yeah,
you know?
like, oh, and now what does my love do? Like, you left them 4 cities ago. Why are you still talking about them? Well, you know, when it's your pieces, they're just there, so that makes a lot of sense. Sin, do you have anything to add?
Because kind of when I see people approaching things, this is one of those kind of things that in games that have them, I like to use passive scores for. So usually, although I guess part of this is the fact that I kind of think about this stuff anyway, when I'm thinking about NPCs, I also have a note about kind of whether or not they are open to like romance or anything else like that. So when someone goes and tries to approach them, before they do, I'll go, what is, like, I'll just have a note on what their passive insight is and kind of have them go, this is things like facial expressions and body language that you're able to pick up. And you could probably make a solid guess here that this could be a move you want to make or absolutely is not a move you want to make. Now, if you decide to act on or against that information, is up to you. It may end up with you being in jail. Because some people would just be like, you know what? Listen, okay, I just work here at the tavern. My job is to come over here and to bring you an ale. And at the end of the day, I want to go home. I am married and I have a cat. Leave me alone. And if you refuse to do that, I am going to get someone with a wand or with a sword to banish you from this bar. One of those two things.
You want fries with that?
And I think in those cases, most of the reason that I like using the passive scores rather than having them try to roll things is like when people want to go in for a roll, they're trying to succeed at something. So it's kind of like, let me just throw the dice at this until this NPC does what I want them to do, instead of you just being able to passively notice this is a no, and this is a no you don't get to roll on. Like, we're not trying to convince this person to do something that they are clearly by their body language, presence, or absence telling you they do not want.
Definitely.
Do you use passive perception like in a D&D, or you have your own individual score for each NPC? Or both?
So you have you have that, and then you also have just like as a character, you have this is what you just casually notice when you're not even trying to do that, and that's the thing I try to do that for with, or I guess with NPCs going like, oh, I see, they're making those eyes. You know what? I'm just gonna walk away before no.
Yeah, totally. I mean, on that point, if you look at like monster stats, I guess they're called, even for humanoid PCs, everyone has a passive, and if you know how to work out passive perception for your character, you can work out passive perception for an NPC super easily. And yes, I completely agree with Radio Silence comic. Passives are completely underutilized in D&D because D&D has passives. But just a quick notice, everybody. The raffle is open now to enter to win the beautiful handmade cherry dice box by the Elderwood Academy. To enter, just type in that command's gone all a bit weird. I will have to fix that. Just basically press exclamation mark and then raffle. If it says you don't have enough points, just host or follow and you will. And then you can enter. Yeah, just like that.
If I can go to what Adelaide was bringing up earlier of like the power dynamic and that whole deal. I mean, we're sex positive here, so but speaking into that, I was in a lot of communities that were sex positive, and I was polyamorous for 3 years, and through a lot of workshops and a lot of working myself and reading a lot of books, and this is just my own DM style and how things work out, but you know, I kind of look at as a DM for like the NPCs I play, or even as a PC, like the relationships are on a spectrum, right? And that's like including with just my friends and people who I play games with, and et cetera, et cetera. Even though I'm monogamous now, I still kind of use that to kind of know how to gauge relationships and to meet them at a consensual place, and know how to like, we're playing a game. I'm an NPC. You're interested in that NPC. Okay, you know, this NPC with your PC is a little bit romantic, and then, you know, after the session's done, I kind of, you know, the spectrum or the scale in my own head kind of just goes back to like, we're, you know, that was in game, that was fun, but like we're friends and I want to continue on that way. And I think that's made it easier, at least for me, trying to navigate being a DM and doing like PC NPC or romance. But that's, I know not everyone has that education or has the knowledge and all that stuff, and it's a different practice. So, but that's how I've approached it, if that helps anyone else out there.
No, that's good. Brilliant.
Pretty good
Cool.
analogy.
Very good analogy. Quote it. Moving on, because obviously we're going to deep dive all of this stuff much, much later further on. But I want to talk about creativity, and the creativity I would like to talk about with everybody here, including chat, is how romantic arcs are really positive motivations for characters, you know, because in D&D, we're going to refer to D&D a lot here because we played a lot of D&D. We're also playing a lot of other systems, which we will talk to you about later in our systems section. But in D&D, romance is kind of done like a downtime activity in general. But as a DM and as storytellers, whether you're either side of the DM screen that you're on, how do you find that romance is a positive motivator for both your characters that you play and as the characters that you facilitate to?
I don't know. For me, I think it gets me way more involved in the party, like as a whole, and the world around me. I think I think this is true if you have any really strong connection to another player, another character in the party, not just on a romantic sense, but it puts a little bit more stakes in the game, so to speak, especially if you're in a combat situation and you're fighting next to your boyfriend, you know, and he's getting hit and you're not, and you're freaking out, you know. I don't know, it puts a little bit more danger into the game. You, first of all, as a player, you pay way more attention if you're not already. And I don't know, it just adds a little magic to it. I don't know. It's so good. Most of my characters are like not necessarily very flirty, but are usually open to what life will bring them in a romance sense, if they're not intentionally seeking it. In the case of like my little turtle lady.
That's why I pulled the face. I was like, oh, really? Oh, okay.
Oh, she's always on the prowl. More demons to wet and wine dine. So, she's had her fair share. Yeah, that's, I don't know, that it's always a positive experience, I think, for my characters is romance, for sure. It gives them a reason to keep going. It gives me a reason to keep going.
Awesome. Anyone else?
We're talking about just the whole, like, kind of the positive motivators aspect of things.
Yeah, like you know, it not being a downtime activity. Like what you know, someone in the chat that's watching us or watching this VOD on YouTube, which it will be going to be uploaded to, what, you know, they're looking for some tips. Like, oh, my players, I need to motivate them. What motivators can they find in romance that you have experienced or have done or have used?
So I would say, like, well, there are a couple of things there, but I like the idea of, okay, I should take a step back here. So as a character, right, I like getting into reasons for doing things and kind of like, why are we going on this adventure? Why is it important to save the town? Why is it important to not have like the whole world explode in a cloud of dust and chaos, right? So having those either really strong platonic relationships or having romantic relationships is kind of that, okay, but here's why we're doing stuff. And it makes the game infinitely more interesting because it's one of those, for me, like, the rush of the game is more about what I'm protecting or what I'm saving or who I'm helping than like going in and slaying all the dragons, the liches, and collecting all the treasure and the money. Because it's kind of like, okay, I have this pile of money, but what am I supposed to do with all of that? I'm not staying anywhere long enough for me to want to build like a whole home. Because if that's the case, I'm not adventuring anymore. On the other hand, having a main city to come back to and have like, I'm going to the library. Why? Well, because my favorite person works at the library, and I'm going to let all of you get into whatever trouble you're going to get into because you're a bunch of hooligans and chaos gremlins, and I'm going to go hang out in the quiet part of the library and maybe read up on some of the newest erotica, if you take my meaning.
I just want to say the Barden, one of my games, is an erotica writer. So that's always great.
And so that's fun, but it also kind of also introduces an interesting dynamic between you and the party, because the party's like, oh, well, exposition, this person has people that they care about too and that they like and things. So maybe that's why they do some of the things that they do, or they act the way that they behave the way that they behave, or why they don't like going to brothels, or maybe why they do like going to brothels. Like just all of that stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. If Kai, I'm gonna go. Kai, I want to make sure you're speaking as well, Kai.
Oh yeah. No, I'm trying to hammer down all of my thoughts into like
Perfect.
a couple cohesive
All right.
words. So feel free to go if you want to go now.
I think as far as and people said it in chat, I think Alirex said it, and a couple of people on the panel. It heightens the stakes. It buys you something into the game, like, you know, this lich or dragon or X monster wants to destroy Y village or community, and you're like, hey, I have someone there. You can't just be like, oh well, not our problem. Like, you know, there's at least a character who's like, you know, my family's there, the person who I swore like my love to, or, you know, someone who I said I'd protect always is there. Like, you know, you can't just veer off, or you can, but you know, with the romantic relationship that brings that, and it also brings just a different dynamic to each character. It gives the character more dimensions, as well as it for me it also it seems to create a more real tangible world for the players, because it's not just, it turns it less into a sandbox and more into like, this is our little community. You're almost like in your own mind you have a community in this game, and it's no longer like as sandboxy of like, we'll just teleport here and there and there and just go wherever. And there are games for that, and those games are fun, but like there's like Sinex just said, you know, there's a place to come back to, you know, there's a place to kind of have a home base or something like that. So it makes the world, although we like our worlds big, it makes it small again to kind of have these relationships in game.
Yeah. So somehow in the several years that I've been on Twitter, I've gained a reputation for banging villains. Because I keep banging the villains?
Okay, that was going to be my follow-up question. So you have a reputation for villains, but actually, how many villains have you actually banged?
Well, the thing is, I have never realized that they were the villain before
Oh,
that happens. So it just kind of always happens. And for me, I get to explore so many more facets of people and discover how terrible they are. And I don't know. I've always planned sort of a romantic facet to my character, and then that falls through, especially if we're playing D&D, and then I'm with a villain somehow. But
Oh, no.
somehow it just always happens.
Oops.
Yeah, for me, gosh, I can't super say a lot that hasn't already been said, but I will say, don't talk about Invisible Sun. Don't talk about Invisible Sun. Don't talk about Invisible Sun. In Invisible Sun, there is a character arc that you can choose that pursues a romance that levels up along the side of the rest of the arcs, more or less. And like the other arcs, I love it because you only advance as a character by both success and failure. You have to learn. You have to succeed at things, and you have to learn from your mistakes. And that's a really beautiful point that I would love to strive for in other games as well. I want to fail at romance in order to understand more about myself.
I mean, look at every love song ever, right?
They're all sad.
I mean, Adele didn't go anywhere until she started singing them sad songs. So, you know, she leveled up. But okay. So,
Can I add one thing before we go on to our next question?
of course.
Because I was thinking, especially in modules, there's really not any kind of romance-based plots in a lot of these games, and I don't really know why that is. I'm not sure if people just feel like awkward about it, or like maybe it's not like masculine enough or whatever. But I'm reading a series of books recommended to me by Aaron Radney, and one of the main little side plots is bringing the ruler of this nation together with the ruler of this other nation who are very much in love, and they're going to try and win a huge war together. And it's a huge part of the plot, but it's also a very small portion of it is not just bringing this army over, but that these two people are actually very much in love, truly in love. And the danger of making sure that this person stays alive while they're on their travels is a big part of it. And I just don't see enough of that. I don't think I've ever really seen anything like that before, now that I think about it, in a big D&D module or otherwise. And I think that's an easy way to get people that are maybe hesitant or just don't really know how to do romance at the table into the idea of, oh, this could happen between two major NPCs, you know, and I can do it too as a PC. Like, that could be a plot line for me. I don't know. It's a really great series, by the way. Phaedra's legacy. Kushiel's legacy is what it's called. Great.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because that's actually a perfect segue into our next session. Just before we take our break, we've got like calculate 12 minutes before we go take our first break, just to so we can go get some water because I know my voice is starting to crack a little bit. And I brought an empty cup, but I didn't bring any water, so that was clever of me. But we're gonna just quickly workshop some romantic plot hooks, like just for everybody, just some short, quick romantic plot hooks. So what we'll do is someone can start. We're gonna do 5. So someone can start with basically who the target is, and then we'll do what the barrier is, and then we'll work on 2 endings. If that makes sense. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, cool. So, Sin's pulling your face. Do you have a question, Sin? Do you need me to explain something?
Are we about to improv a thing? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, we're improving a quick workshop for some very simple romantic plot hooks just before we go into break. So, whoever it stops to, I just hit my camera. I know. Michael, who is the target of the romantic plot hook?
I'm gonna say Eldarin. Just a Eldarin that kind of shifts through seasons. I think those are always very alluring, and it tends to draw PCs and NPCs. Yeah.
Okay. Whoever wants to go next can just shout out a situation.
All of their seasonal personalities are very distinct, not in an actual distinct personality sense, but they've got a little bit of an attitude, and one's much more pleasant, and it's a conflict with their love interest.
Okay. And what's the barrier, Sin or Kai?
A barrier as in what? A barrier from talking to them?
A barrier to the arc being resolved. Why do the PCs need to get involved? Why are they intrigued? Why is the situation of the Eldarin with many multiple attitudes, we'll say, rather than personalities?
Attitudes. That's the word I was thinking.
It's all right, darling. I got you. Yeah, the barrier's a hard one. Chat,
What
if you
is
have
the barrier?
if you have any ideas.
Live for a very long time. I think that this one is Demi, and their love was a long, long time ago, and they just want them back. So the party's job is to raise their long lost love.
That's an interesting way to take it. Okay, Sin.
Do you have another idea, Sin?
So, so are we still on barriers, or what are we doing here?
Well, you can do another barrier if you want, or you can just do a conclusion, a goal.
Okay, so taking what Kai just said, what if that love of theirs, who is long since passed, or at least everyone thought was, is the lich that your adventurers have been set to conquer?
I need this.
That is a plot hook.
Villain romance.
Coming to Goldhart.
So you have kind of the whole resolution there too. Like, you defeating the lich would free them to be able to reconnect with their love and possibly resurrect them, or depending on how hard you want these feels to hit, it's kind of like, I've loved you and I've always will, but I also need to go.
Oh no.
Oh,
Maybe Theolodrin just also becomes a lich, and they just live in lich love.
Well, that is a totally end thing that could totally happen because of player actions. You never know.
Or like What if
I,
she?
I for one welcome our new Lich Lords.
I'm going to find whatever plane that they're going to after this, and I'm going to go and inhabit that plane.
Excellent. All right, moving on to the next one. Since you ended, you can start. Who is the target of this plot hook? Who are they?
Who is the target of the plot hook? The leader of the Thieves Guild.
Okay, we're just going to do reverse now. So, Kai, you do the situations. Leader of the Thieves Guild. What's the situation?
The situation is how fantastical do I want to make it? I want to make it pretty fantastical. The situation is that there is a sort of esoteric thief who's been stealing more or less esotericisms. So the Thieves Guild leader's heart has been stolen, quite literally, from him, along with a lot of other
Stuff.
a lot of other things, like the light from the dawn. We just go straight from night to day now.
Oh, that's a lot.
Right. So
and then after that, it was Adelaide. Adelaide, you are next. What is the barrier to this Thieves Guild leader who's had their hearts stolen, as well as the Dawn?
I'm gonna say that little thief loses the heart with someone that can communicate with it and falls in love with the original thief leader. Falling in love with an inanimate heart. I just love your heart. You just have such a great heart.
Whisper secrets to it. Whisper secrets to my heart, please. I love it. And Michael, what's the goal? What's the end game? The twist, which it's turning out to be.
Yeah, it's a lot of twists. I gotta like package it up with all these twisted ribbons. What was the question again? Now that I what was the part that I have to figure out?
So we've got a Thieves Guild leader who has lost their heart, and the Dawn has been stolen. But the person who has stolen the heart has been whispering sweet nothings to it and has fallen in love with the heart.
Okay.
Package it up.
Yeah. That original guild leader puts out a bounty for someone to steal back that heart. And the person who steals the heart will actually get the romantic arc with that guild leader instead of the person who like was talking to it for such a long time.
And we're going to call this game War of Two Hearts.
Yeah.
There we go. Nice.
Oh, no.
All right, I think we might have time for maybe one or two more before we have to go to break. So this one we're just going to have whoever wants to go first, just grab it. So who is the target?
A grumpy old man.
Grumpy old man.
Hipster.
Those remaining. What seconds? I'm having a bit of a brain fuzz moment.
The situation.
Oh yes, the situation. What is the situation with this grumpy old man?
That's a hard one. I don't know.
I got like 5, but I'm the moderator.
He's a deposed king.
Oh.
Yeah. He's a deposed king in exile. And
Listen, can you just like leave the panel now and start writing some novels?
What do you think the comic
I'm working on it.
What do you think the comic patron is about?
And the deposed king, he was a king until he found out that his queen was actually a dragon. And when the whole kingdom found out that she was a dragon, he lost his kingdom.
Oh no! I need to know where this queen is now. Sin, package this up.
I would say I feel like all I'm going to do here is add extra complications and this rather than like any kind of resolution. So that's what y'all are going to get. How, depending on how long he's been deposed, like the kingdom has been on sharp decline. That person was a golden dragon bringing good fortune to the kingdom in human form.
Ooh.
Oh crap, Sin, can I? What if the wait, you're saying the grumpy old man used to be a dragon?
No, that the wife that he was married to,
yeah,
is probably still is one. I'm like, unless something has happened to her.
Yeah,
Nothing should happen to her. I'm already in love with her. Stop it.
it's fine. I just got ideas. It's fine.
Oh,
don't worry about it.
Well, we have 30 seconds to pile your ideas on.
Oh no, I'm just gonna lock it in here and put it in the comic. It's fine.
Novel notes.
Novel notes.
And
I would like to inform everybody in chat at this moment, we absolutely do not on this side of the table or the screen for that matter have like 5 Google Docs open, each of them with their own titles and like some hastily typed in notes about all of this stuff that we're going to make into actual games later. That's not a thing.
I mean, that could just easily be like a Dragon Age AO3.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. All right, everybody. Because we are quite a long panel at 2 hours, we're going to take a quick break, grab some water, stretch your legs, have a bio break, etc. Don't go anywhere. And we'll be back for the second part of Romance, creating romantic arcs in TTRPGs, where we start to get into the meat of things. So go mentally prepare yourselves. We'll go mentally prepare ourselves, and we'll be right back.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course you
Go
can.
and tell your friends we're out here.
Yes, go tell your friends. Go tell your friends that they should come watch us, because we're about to get to the good stuff. This is the
Gonna get into the cakes, so to speak.
yeah the stuff that needs content warnings. But we'll see you all very, very soon. So don't go anywhere. Oh my god.
Wait, I gotta pee, so I know Michael needs to
We're not
pee.
clear yet. Haha. Hi, everybody. There we go. I got it working. Wouldn't be a stream if it did. Someone wasn't muted. We're back. Did you have a good stretch and a good rest? Go tell your friends that we're back as well and that they can come learn something because we're about to get into the meat of stuff. But before we begin, I am Leonie, also known as Gloss and Gadgets, and I am your moderator today for this panel, Romance, Creating Romantic Arcs in TTRPGs. We have been talking about D&D quite a bit, but we're going to start talking about other systems, and this is the bit I'm very excited about, because some of these systems I'm actually aware of, and I actually know, so I'm kind of like, and I'm really excited, especially for a singular particular one that was introduced to me a couple of days ago, but I won't give spoilers. We'll just get to that bit. I'm just excited for it. So yes, we are part of Nerdburger Con. Nerdburger Con is the convention which has just started running by Nerdburger Games, the creators of the Capers TTRPG, which if you haven't played, they have a noir setting, a spy setting. It's kind of like a 1920s type of game that's really cool for like detective noir type of games, and it doesn't use dice, it uses a card system, which is very, very ingenious. I do believe that it's actually on sale at the moment, but the best place to go ask all of that information and everything is at the Nerdburger Convention Central, which is a Discord, which if one of my wonderful moderators could drop in the link for me, go join this the Discord, because there are other panels, there are other streams, there are other games. I do believe some games have open slots. There is a virtual vendor part. It is a proper online full-on convention, and yeah, we're one of the panels for it, so go check that out. Brilliant. Also, we have a giveaway. Elderwood Academy, the people that do all the beautiful DM screens and dice boxes and dice vaults and all the other beautiful stuff out of very beautiful wood, have donated to the con a beautiful cherry wood dice box, which you can win, which we will draw right at the end. Simply by typing exclamation raffle. That's no space, just the exclamation raffle, all one word. You need 120 stags, which is our kind of like XP currency that we use here. If you don't have that, you earn it by watching, or you can just follow us or host us and you'll earn those points straight away. The follow, I think, gives 150 stags, so you can just grab that real quick with a quick follow. You can unfollow us afterwards. Don't worry, I won't hold it against you if you're just here to win the box. The box is very beautiful. I would personally do that myself, so here we are. So yeah, so make sure you enter that raffle and I will draw a winner right at the end. Sadly, I am a panelist. Well, I'm the moderator, but I'm here on the panel, so I can't enter. So win it for me. Please note that if you are actually entering, that you do give consent to share an address that we can mail you this physical actual item to store your beautiful dice into. If when you get it, if you can just like a picture at me so I can just envy you for the rest of my life, that would be good too. Also, very important to note that Nerdburger Con is fundraising for the Trevor project, which helps LGBTQIA plus teenagers in need. 70% of the fundings will go to there, and the other 30% will help Nerdburger Games designer who is having life-changing surgery. Just before we started, it was at $500 of $3,000. So if you do have extra monies or co-fees, if you could like to throw a few dollars at that, the link is right there on the Nerdburger Con homepage, which the link has now been dropped in chat. Last thing before we get going, we are about to enter the quite mature part of the chat. We're going to be very sex positive. We're going to be quite risque. We're going to be talking about sex and love and consent, and we're also going to be talking about LGBTQIA plus relationships. So if this is something that you are that hurts your sensibilities, come back and watch the VOD later or just tune out. But before we go into more of that, we will be giving more headway into a little bit of warning, just so you can zone out or go make yourself a cup of tea, because you know I'm British and we like a good cup of tea. Right, everybody, did you have a good break? Did chat have a good break?
I do believe so.
Good.
So, per the recommendation of the panelists, I went to go have a small soda. Well, we didn't have pineapple soda. I liked it myself. So we have Mandarin instead.
Hey.
Okay, that's all right. That's all
That's
right.
real good.
That's my favorite one.
We're having an okay runner up right here.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Okay. Right, so the next part of our conversation, let's start to ease ourselves into this sensual part, get the fans ready, get the fainting couches ready. So let's talk about romance, love. The many different forms of love. So back in the day, the Greeks had 8 words to describe different forms of love, and I did my homework. They are eros for passion or love, philia for affectionate love, the love you feel with your friends, agape, selfless love. It's almost like
Like being really like the most extreme form of altruism possible.
yes, it's like the ultimate empathy. It's like love for strangers, that kind of love. I'm probably gonna pronounce this one wrong, but it's I want to say storage, but it's not. It's storge. Familiar love, love between family. Sorry, Kai, you were muted. Please correct me.
Sorry, how do you spell it?
STORGE. I tried to type it down for you. Thank
I
you.
want to say the G is like an H.
Storge?
I believe so, but don't quote me on it.
I'm going to say storge until someone else corrects me who's like, yes, it's definitely this, you bad person. But, you know, the love you feel amongst your family, mania, obsessive love. We've all been there in our teens. Ludus, playful love. The kind of love you feel when you're crushing or squeezing on someone and acting on it. You know, that early stage of that song. I won't sing it. Pragma, the enduring love, the love of long-term commitment. Fallituitia. Oh, that's a mouthful. Self-love. And we all know about self-care. But the love you feel for the self. But it's 2020, and love has grown and added a few more dynamics to that. So we're going to talk about representation. We're going to start talking about representation of platonic love, ace aro love, because those are things, believe it or not. And of course, I dropped my notes. Ace aro love, and of course, just general LGBT representation in romance. So, with all these many different forms of love, panelists, with the 3 topics of platonic love, ace aro love, and LGBTQIA plus love, how do you handle these different forms of love, and how do you handle them with care?
So as far as like LGBT love, I'm queer and bisexual. I just do my best to normalize it. Like that's the world. Deal with it. And if my players don't like it, then they're probably not a fit for my table. In fact, they're definitely not a fit for my table. I don't really make a huge. I feel like if I was at a game where someone was making a huge spectacle about this, like bisexual femme relationship, I would feel put on the spot. Like, am I supposed to be impressed? Kind of thing. Like, this is just real life for me. I don't know. I have, when I make my NPCs, they all come with their different backstories and relationships and things, and I just make them all, make sure they're all different, and put that representation in there from the get-go, and then it's just it's just life, you know. They just casually talk about my husband or my husbands, you know, like it just is.
Anyone else having to import?
I mean, I can only speak so much into the subject. As far as LGBTQ, I obviously am an ally, but I am cishet. So, but I do try and represent those characters in all my campaigns, or support it if someone is looking to do that in my game and through an NPC or however they want to go about that. I just view it like I try and make it as organic as possible. Check in, and I just act like, hey, if I'm this person, whatever their representation is, or orientation, like if I'm this person, how would I be? So I just like I try and become that, and show, like, because all of us are human, we all want love, we all, if you look at everyone's how everyone goes about it, they just want to be loved, they want to be treated like everyone else. And so that's how I try and approach the same thing, because I don't, obviously being cishet male, I don't know any better, but I as far as like how those relationships go, but I try and definitely I've read up, and I've also check in, and I just try and be organic and normalize it as much as I can.
I think for okay, so for each of these, for platonic things, with handling them with care, the thing is trying not to, and obviously there are those moments where you have dynamics for these sorts of things, but trying to kind of limit the amount of times that I mention them or bring them up as humor. Right? If you see two people who just have a really close bond and they really like talking to each other, spending time together, and all this other stuff, and they share a lot, trying not to, for example, if the intent is, hey, these two party members have been through a lot and they have developed a bond with each other, not immediately making jokes about how they should be dating or when they're getting married or if they're having kids. Like, just let them be friends and have that intimacy as friends without trying to make that the butt end of a joke. And the same thing for like ace people or arrow people. Now, again, there are moments that have those, I guess, kind of humorous pickups when everybody's on the same page about them and they're comfortable with it. But things like, let's not take our like ace and aromantic friend and see if we can get them really drunk at a tavern and then leave them in a brothel and see where they come out the next day. Like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe. For things like that. Especially because I personally in games play a lot of characters who do not necessarily have romantic inclinations. Like the last time we were playing a game out here, I was a robot bard. Like it would have been like, you would have left me in a brothel and it would have been like, would you like to sing a song? Would you like to play a game? I recently went and made this Rubik's Cube that talks, right? Like these are good settings for these things and stuff. And while to a certain extent, those moments can, like you can have those moments, trying to take them seriously in the same way that you would take these people seriously if they were real life things helps a lot for me. And then for LGBTQ stuff, especially where I am a giant capital purple B, just, I don't know, let people exist. Like they already exist. This isn't like a magical and mystical thing that you have to figure out, how do I make this up fit into a fantasy setting? They have these people back in like every ancient civilization that has ever existed. Just let them be in the world and have people see them. Like the blacksmith and like the blacksmith who works over here and like the army training captain that works over there. They're clearly in a relationship and we don't have to make a big deal about it. Like there they are, existing, and it's great.
So I have to admit, one thing that I personally struggle with as an ace person is sexual attraction. I don't understand how sexual attraction works. Like I was having a conversation with a dear friend, which I'm quite happy to share with you, and I was just like, they have sexual attraction, and I was just like, what do you just like see someone and you're like, oh yeah, that person's so hot. I want our genitals to like touch. Like it doesn't work in my head because I may be ace, but I'm not blind. I can be like, wow, that's a very attractive person over there, and then I go along about my day. Like how does you work
No,
arrows?
it's pretty much you got it.
Oh, again? Is it really? Really?
I mean, for me, like, yeah.
Thank you for clearing that up. I've always wanted that answer clarified because I just like, how does it work? Like you just want to
Start daydreaming. You just start daydreaming.
Okay, so daydreams are involved. All right, this is good.
But I think what's helpful too is like, since you described, did you say ace or arrow as your
I'm ace. Yeah.
Your ace? And
Yeah.
so like I think it's important to like think that this can also fall on a spectrum. There are people that you see, you're like, dang, I want me and that person to bump, and that's what you think. There's other people who you're like, man, that person's really strong, I just want them to cuddle me, or I just want to hang out with that person because they seem really cool or cute or handsome or sexy. I just want to be friends. Like that's, and it's, so it could be the whole spectrum of things, but there is how you're describing like being ace, like you don't quite get how that happens, and that can still happen in like TTRPGs of like, man, that barbarian gladiator is just like crushing heads right now, and I love for them to like take me back and cuddle me because like I've had a hard day slaying a dragon. Like that's completely irrelevant, you know what I mean?
Excellent. I love, and we've also sorry, please go ahead.
So for role playing respectfully, and especially including these this wide variety of identities that we're talking about here, it's really good to not paint them all in the same picture. Like just because these two people are gay doesn't mean they're dating. Just because this person's arrow doesn't mean they only like they never see anybody. They might be trying to date because they might be trying to find a part of themselves. Being an asexual in a romantic relationship with somebody who is very sexual can be very difficult, and it creates a lot of very interesting conversations and a lot of catharsis. But yeah, there are a lot of people out there. And I guess another point to make is we want representation, but we want that representation to take its own time in coming to fruition. We want like the characters to work for it. We don't want you to just dump it on us and say like, oh yeah, this is my whole identity. We want to learn about it. It's like not on your name card.
Yeah, being bisexual is a big part of my identity, but it is not the identity of me, like it would be very weird, I think, if you were a DM at a table and you introduce an NPC by hi, I'm Adelaide and I'm gay, which, sometimes I do that, but most of the time, I would say 98% of the time I don't actually talk that way, and I think characters are not real people, but they are real people. It's not, people don't do that.
And we've talked about, of course, how do we handle that with care, but how are all these things different? I think that's one thing that I see happen a lot on other shows that I've seen and in general in stories. They just kind of like paint everyone with the same brush. That they think that just by going, oh yes, here is a bartender, and he turns around and says to his husband, and that's representation, but it's more than that. So what are the differences between these relationships, whether they're between platonic or LGBTQIA plus or anything else like that?
And I guess because of what you just said, maybe also like a couple of notes on like how those things are presented. I think I said it best in it's something that people should have to kind of work a bit to find out. If I'm walking through a grocery store, if you pick up the phone and you talk to me today, if you send me an email and I write you back, nothing about that is going to tell you anything about who may or may not end up in my bedroom at any point in time. And I feel like if you have people over there, on the one hand, and I think this is something that people struggle with in games when it comes to representation, is how do I let these people just be without trying to put a big beacon on their head about it? And it's but you don't have to. No one has. If no one is trying to flirt with this person, you really do not have to tell them what end of the spectrum that they're on. If they decide to take a closer look, then by all means, feel free to give them the information or whatever. If you have someone's like, hey, I'm trying to like pick up some kind of vibe from the bartender, and it's like, well, you see the bartender looking over at another bartender who's working, and you notice that every now and then they kind of just look at each other for a second longer than normal. Like if they ask for it, then by all means give that to them. But I feel like there's this thing where people try to swing so hard in the other direction that they kind of just jump straight into stereotypes, or just being like, hey, here's a giant glowing neon sign. These people are gay. Also, while we're here talking about LGBT people and like gay people in particular, y'all, every tailor that you have in town does not have to be gay. Please stop. God, like,
And
seriously.
Bard. They don't
Yep.
all have to be like
Don't all
fuckfest
have to be
McGee.
gay.
You know, they don't have
Nope.
to.
Um,
But yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
and
Like an NPC's like entire background can go. You've written it all, and the characters never learn about it because they never bother asking. You know, like,
yeah.
and that's fine.
That's okay. A big thing about all this is it starts with world building. It starts with familiarizing yourself and researching civilizations that did normalize a lot of these identities, and then figuring out what you need to take out of your setting or put into your setting to make it work in a way that everyone can respect and understand.
Yeah. And it actually has just raised a great point, which segues into our next section. Ashley says, as someone who has never had in real life space to explore and get comfortable with possible facets of my personal identity, getting able to play a character to have those traits gives me casual, supportive space to practice. So, with that in mind, let's move on to our next topic. Creating space, both positive and negative. So we're going to start with systems that which include mechanical and narrative support for romances. And even if you don't know any systems, you might be able to say some homebrew that you've encountered. Kai, I know you've done lots of research on this. Do you want to open?
Yes. Okay. So everybody, I've been like going through all of my H documents and my memories in preparation for this panel. And I'm just going to name a couple, but I can shout out more as well. The first one I want to mention is Mobile Frame Zero by, gosh, I don't know how to pronounce their names, so I will say M. Baker and D. Vincent Baker. The system is based off of Stealing Time Together, and it is also powered by the Apocalypse. It is a gorgeous system with consent and structure built directly into the actual game itself. And that is something that we don't really see a whole lot of. Usually you have a consent section, or at least I've seen consent sections that are different than the actual mechanical aspect itself. So in the game, you play one of three types of people, either a noble who benefits from the current system. You play a colonizer from a corporation, or you play a revolutionary who's making the change happen. And through this, you play a series of games. The first one is solitaire, in which you establish your character, but the rest directly concern the other players. This is a GM-less, or you could play with a facilitator if you wanted to, but it can run GM-less for 3 to 5 players. And in it, you do different things, like you can ask somebody to dance with you. You can have dinner with them. You can have a chase. You can have a skirmish. But in these, let's see, I will pull from a dance. So during the dance, you have 2 people. One person chooses another participant, and you have these questions, and you answer back the other person in this party. And let's see here. There's softer things like my hair has fallen in front of my ear. Do you touch my face? Things like that, things that invite people into your space to interact with you. And the answer to that is yes or no. And if you touch it, you can have the option to like, you pull it behind their ear again, or perhaps you just touch it and like drag it against their skin down the line of their hair. There's another one that I really love that's something about me catches your eye and your look lingers. What is it? This one is it stands out particularly to me because what it does is it invites people into your space again and creates something about you. For me personally, I always like creating things about my own character all the time, and the idea that this is suddenly consensual is like really, really great for me. So not only does it invite somebody into your space, it also tells you what they like about you, or what is eye-catching about you. So that's like my first thing. I'm gonna stop talking now because I'm getting. But yeah, that's an example of a system that has those mechanics built into the actual gameplay itself.
I've actually given that PDF a read, and I'm very excited to play. I've not ever seen a TTRPG with consent built into the actual mechanics. It's pretty new and amazing to me. Like usually when you read these games, you get a section on consent, and it's like, use the X card, and you go,
It
okay.
gets you out of the moment. Yeah.
Well, the reason why I don't have an aversion to the X card. The X card is a great and useful safety tool. It's not the only safety tool though, and I feel like people use the X card as a like a fallback. It comes across almost lazy to me because I don't personally feel that the X card is ever approachable as a black woman, because you know society tells me that I'm loud and that I make waves and that I'm just all up in your face and I'm disturbing stuff. So why would I use a mechanic that literally goes, halt, you are upsetting me, stop? It doesn't make it's not accessible to me. And you know, some other people might find it's not accessible for many other reasons, but that is just one that I can explain as not being accessible. Michael, you had something that you wanted to add.
I was just trying to create space for Sin. Did you want to add on to?
Oh, no, as far as earlier points, I think we're good on those. Although I do want to say something about this since we're here, which is, oh, okay. I just saw something. I'm like, oh no, but we're fine. So it's a lot of times in these spaces, and I guess that's the other point of systems that don't have these mechanics built into it. You know, let's start with when you're looking at a game or any other system in particular, the things that they value are the things that usually have the most rules around them or the most mechanics around them. If we talk about games like D&D, which I think all of us know about, right? The thing about that game will be you have all of these rules for how far you can fire an arrow, how far you can reach with a pole arm, how many steps you can walk before the end of your turn in a period of 6 seconds or something like that. But you don't have a lot of rules on these romantic interactions or things like that, or social interactions in general. So you have to build all these safety tools on top of it to just go, okay, how do we navigate this, especially in a system where you have one person whose sole job and responsibility is to interpret how everything works. And if that person just happens to be not necessarily the best person that can just be like, well, here is an open door and a one-way ticket into trauma. You can feel free to have these as a treat, and you're just like, I don't, when I was thinking about things I wanted today, it was not that, so you have these cards where you have like X's and O's, and you have things like you can check, like, yes, this is cool. No, this is not cool. Okay, this is cool-ish, but only if you kind of off-screen it, because we're not trying to like dig into all of that. And in the middle and weaving in between that are a bunch of people in a fandom who are just like, don't do things that ruin our fun. You're supposed to homebrew stuff, and you're supposed to make up things as you go and all this other stuff. So when you get into these moments where you do have to go, I know that y'all are having fun, but I can't deal with that topic. It kind of draws attention to you, like Leonie was mentioning, that you don't always want, and in a way that's kind of uncomfortable. Like, I like having those rules because it's one of those, if you don't have those rules, you don't have any. It's either you play the X card, or you have to have people drag you through experiences that are miserable, and then you come back to it later, and it's either like, I'm going to try to suffer through this game out of spite and kind of hate everybody in the process, or you just like get up and walk away from the game altogether, and there is no in between for that.
So sorry to interrupt, but it has just been raised to me that yes, 2 hours is definitely not enough, and I quickly flicked my eyes up to the time. We have 15 minutes left.
Sure.
You know what? We're gonna have a romance part 2. Please, Michael, say your piece.
Well, yeah. Actually, here, let me ask this question. Hey, chat, if y'all want a romance part 2, like, here, you have the whole chat space to make noise about that. Please and think.
We'll do another one.
Yep. So, right, we're talking about the systems that we use and stuff. And, like, mine's not TTRPG based. We're sex positive here. So, like, all the stuff I know about consent and creating space all came from the kink BDSM community in LA, and like going to workshops and reading a ton of books, a ton of books. Like you can read a ton of books about consent and how to go about that actively as a participant, and checking in and make it dynamic, and not like, let's halt everything, just like Leonie was saying. The knowledge is there, and I think blending that in with TTRPGs, not just for these romance scenes and steamy scenes, but even just for like interacting with the shopkeeper or asking another player in an improv session, like, let's do this improv regarding this funny topic. Like, all those things still apply. It's kind of insane that like the best place to kind of look is like through one of those more spicy books, and just going to the chapters, because most of the great ones just have a solid chapter or multiple chapters of just the consent stuff. You don't have to read the steamy stuff if you don't want to, and just go through that, flip through it, and just see what they have to say about how to approach this in a respectful, meeting, and dynamic way.
Too right. Okay. So because we're rounding up, let's open up our Q&A. Chat, please drop your questions about creating romantic arcs in TTRPGs, and we'll try and whip through them as quickly as possible. While I'm letting you do that, don't forget that we have our giveaway. We'll draw the winner just before the end. Type ! Raffle, all one word. To enter. If it tells you that you don't have another point, just pop us a little follow. It'll give you 150 points. Tickets are 120. You'll have enough points to grab that. And go follow our Twitter at GoldhartG for romance part 2, because we clearly ran out of time.
I really thought we had like at least a solid 45 more minutes left.
So did I.
Shit.
I blinked and I was like, wait, where did that time flies when you're having fun? So any questions that I can see in the chat? Lots of people entering the raffle. That's what I like. Yep, part 2 is definitely coming. Do the panelists have any other questions for any of their other panelists that they would like to ask? Here we go. Questions are coming forward.
Questions to ask about just what this topic here?
Yeah, romance in general.
So I guess my question, if I could pick one for the panel, would be what is a time that you have felt like the best represented in a game?
I
So I play
That's
an
a good
android.
question.
I one, can't answer this question because I'm moderator, but two, I can't answer this question because it's still my TTRPG wish list to be romanced. It's not happened
You
yet.
know, I will say I played a sex worker in one campaign that was going on. And short story, I used to be a sex worker. And so her job was very similar to mine. And it was the first time, first of all, it was the first time that I'd ever really been like that public about it before. And second of all, that it was one, not shamed at all. Two, that I was able to have the freedom to be what it's really like, which, you know, can also be a problem, but it can also be a lot of fun. And it allowed me the space to make my jokes about my background, that I think a lot of people are really uncomfortable with, especially with the line of sex work. Like because it's not all fun and games. It's not all fun and games. But you know, but it's not all like, oh my God, you know, I'm on the street on drugs, you know, which is a true thing. But that's not the entirety of it. So it was really fun to be able to have my DM and my party accept that my character was a very full-figured, literally and metaphorically character in a way that I had never done before. It was a really fun challenge, but it was a really fun challenge for me.
Nice. Anyone else have anything else to ask that before we go to our audience
We
question?
did have an audience question here.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was just checking to see if anyone else had any input to your question. The audience question.
I think I would say for that question, the best time I've seen myself represented in a game was honestly in the middle of what I'm going to call petty romances. So I was a historian in the game, and the ranger decided to flirt with me at a tavern one time. And it was kind of like, is this going to be a thing? I don't know, but we'll see how it goes. And so it turns like one day his son got murdered. And so I made it my personal mission and the way that they got murdered was a giant lightning breathing lizard turned his son into ash. So I collected the ashes in a jar and I kept them with me until we found a way to resurrect him. And when we resurrected him, they got into an argument because their relationship had a little bit of tension. He wasn't necessarily the most responsible dad. And so I ended up taking his son back home to his mother. When I met his mother, I'm like, you know, a lot of things make sense. So we got into a whole conversation of, so did he? Mm-hmm, he sure did. Yup. Mm-hmm. Do you have any tea in the cup and the cabinet? You know something? I just made a pot. Let's sit down and talk. We got into this whole gossip thing about her husband. And she's just like, I know you're going to run into him before I do because he so rarely comes home. Can I get you to give him a present? And what would that be? She gave me an enchanted cleaver. The cleaver is enchanted to fly around and like sit right here, just a hair under his chin at all times. So I just kind of came back from this dimension full of petty intent. And when I came back, it was kind of like, you know something? I finally took your son back home. Happened to meet your wife. She's a lovely lady, by the way, and makes most excellent tea. And she also sent me back with a present for you. And his eyes went wide and he's kind of like, here you go. And the knife just flew out of my bag to like right under his chin and followed him for like the next 3 days in game. Wonderful time.
Wonderful. All right. So chat questions. So this one comes from Chimari. I'm kind of curious if you all have ideas about how to motivate relationships being deeper and not feeling forced. My players and friends always tend to go for they're dating and it's cute and lovely, and I want things to be, want things to be idyllic. How do you balance throwing wrenches into relationships with players' desires for idealism?
I guess for like this one, players as venturing groups tend to just throw wrenches in them by their own. It's just use that inspiration, like we're gonna go off and do this thing, and we're gonna leave you here with like a kid, or leave you here with your own problems, and that naturally just creates tension. You can use whatever the characters are doing in their own. And then as far as what Wayfaring Rune says as well, their question, and it was kind of your question, Leonie, too, is that you asked how do we see representation of ourselves. I create different representation of other people and make them full, whole, functioning people and characters with dreams, goals, fears, the whole nine. And then they have, the other elements that people were speaking into about their orientation, sexuality, or how they approach relationships. That's part of the full package. When you do that, these characters come to life, and they are normalized people. They are organic people. They fit into your world, and they're supposed to be there because they exist in our own world. They're people.
Yeah. Next question we have up is if you've built a society with normalized LGBTQIA plus relationships, or have a favorite setting you played in, how did the setting express that without stereotypes, obviously? Do we see that realized romance narratives? That's from Wayfaring Rune.
Actually have a quick answer for the first one.
Yep, go ahead.
Yep. How do I balance throwing wrenches into relationships with the player's desire for idealism? One of the things I do is I start holistically. I actually want to know more about the individual themselves. And so one of my practices as a GM is it's not homework per se. I like warming up the group into the game by asking them or giving them prompts to flesh out their character. And it's an everyone part of the participation. All the players are privy to this information that's coming, so that we can play with that personal lore a little bit more. And we get to know characters, because a lot of the reason that so many things seem surface level is because we haven't really put a lot of thought into these characters. The game doesn't ask us to do that. If we want to write 27,000 words, we can do it on our own. But if everyone has access to that information, we can all throw wrenches into each other's gears in a consensual and healthy way.
Excellent. Does anyone have an answer for the society with normalized, non-stereotypical LGBTQIA plus relationships?
So, I would say, when you're dealing with world building, where you have, hey, do you have normalized relationships at these times? It's kind of, I think it's just more of a normalized relationships, just normalized relationships. It's not something that you have to focus on necessarily. Just like, hey, you have two queens of this kingdom, you have two kings of this other kingdom. Like, those are just things that in your world building, when you express them, at least, in my opinion here, it should be a thing that just is. So that when someone comes to it, it's kind of like, oh, well, that's a thing. Everybody knows that. Not a thing where people are just like, I don't know, that relationship seems scandalous or something like that, because what's scandalous about it? These people just exist, right? So removing the concept of it's scandalous for you to be in any of those kinds of relationships kind of clears out about 3/4 of any kind of concerns you would have about that. And then the rest of it would just be, when you see them, or if you see them, like we mentioned earlier with Kai, make it a thing that people have to actively learn or look at to find out. If we're trying to normalize it, it shouldn't be a thing that just screams out from a single person, again, like a fire alarm. It should be oh, I did see these two talking to each other for a really long time. I did see them walking one time. I did catch them kissing on a corner one day at the end of the night at the tavern. I guess maybe they're a thing because we see them together being romantic all the time if we're happening to catch those details. But yeah, I think if we're going to try to normalize things, that's what that would look like. What kind of things would you use to show that those things were normal in that society? In some cases, well, for me, I prefer that those things be casual more than like hard-coded lore about like the most epic lovers ever, unless you happen to like go to the city library to go look that stuff up, which would be kind of cool. But I prefer it to be more casual observations, like seeing those people be sweet and intimate toward each other, not necessarily like, let me jump your bones in the middle of the town square, but things like someone visits in the middle of the day and brings someone lunch. Like that very just smooth, casual stuff. Thank you so much for being a sweetheart about that. And then they just continue out of the room. And it's kind of like, did that just happen? Yes, it did.
I mean, just to clarify your answer a little bit more, like if you had a king and queen, would you have fantastic lore, rulers, festivals about the king and queen, or would you just go, they're a king and king or a queen and queen? Like, just think about what you would do normally, and then just change the pronouns. Like,
yeah, and one of the ways that I help support that in at least 2 of my settings has been to untie bloodline from inheritance, and remove that authority there and that overarching sort of structure, and say no, they can just choose whoever they want to inherit their stuff. And then it takes away that that impetus to have these like heteronormative relationships for children.
I have
next
an example from
Oh,
my
yes,
game,
please.
actually. If I could do that real quick. My Tuesday game, my character didn't know her real parents, and it turns out that her mother is one of the big bad evil guys, and her other parent is also a woman. But it wasn't like a surprise, you got 2 moms. It was it was a surprise, like these are your parents, and everybody else in the world knew about these people, and it was not ever like a thing that was like, oh, this is taboo. Like my DM is fantastic, and it was just, this is what it like. This is your mom and this is your other mom, and now you have to figure out what to do about it, because one of them's evil. And it was really cool in that sense, because I, first of all, like I love like femme romances, and their story's very complicated and not all the details are aired out yet. But the way that I was interacting with my grandmother character, the relationship wasn't approved of, but it was not because of they were 2 women. That wasn't even a thought that came to mind, which was really appreciated, especially because they're not friends of mine that I've known forever. The players, we're friends now, but I don't know. It's just it just little things like that really enhance your game experiences, especially as a player that's marginalized. So if you can do those things for your players, by all means, yeah, it's great. It's good.
We are literally out of time. Hey, Linz, I'm so sorry. Please come DM me on Twitter at Gloss and Gadgets, because I've totally done that. I've done it both with a player and a DM, so come tell, and I'll tell you all my stories. All right? So I'm sorry about that. But yes, time's up. We're going to go draw the winner of our giveaway. If you haven't entered, this is your last chance. Enter by typing !raffle. If you don't have enough points, then follow. You'll have enough points. Here we go. I'm slowly moving my mouse over to the chat bot. I'm opening up the chat bot where all the entries are. I'm looking for where giveaways are. Are you entering? Are you entering? Are you entering? All right, giveaway. There you go. Are you done? Are you good? Alrighty, then I'm gonna close the giveaway. Closing now. Alright, picking a winner. Drum roll, please. Pick winner. Alienx, you have won.
Yeah, hey,
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congratulations. Please DM me or on Goldhart your address and we'll get that all sorted to you. All right. Well, everybody, this has been a blast. I can't believe we've run out of time. That flew. Who knew? Time flies when you're having fun. We clearly, because everybody wants to have a part 2, we will certainly have a part 2. Please follow us at GoldhartG on Twitter when we announce when part 2 will come. Obviously, we'll put this up on our YouTube so you can watch part 1 in its entirety as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It was amazing. Thank you so much. Please also check out the rest of the con because there's so much interesting stuff going on. And you can do that by joining the Convention Nerdburger Con Discord if one of my moderators will drop the chat. Don't forget as well that Nerdburger Con is fundraising for the Treasure Project. And of course, one of their designers that is having life-changing surgery. So if you can jump onto the Nerdburger Con website and maybe donate, if you have anything to donate, that would be wonderful. We can get much heart to you. So thank you, everybody, for being here to our very first panel. Clearly, this is a good medium for us, so we'll have more panels. So till next time, remember to stay in trouble on and on fire and go smooch a couple of people with consent. Have a good day, everyone. Take care. Bye. Done. Wait, not clear.
Nice. Holy shit, that was 2 hours.